So jumping into this, Jazz, I don't know if you're aware, but I used to actually run I was a part of a UFC podcast. So I did betting and all sorts of things, and we were kind of ranked as one of the best podcasts as far as betting goes in the world. So it was when you and I linked up, man, I was so excited not only to talk about the film because I love the film, but about your background as far as being a ring announcer and kind of a performer. Fans and people know, digging into your name ultimately, you're a professional announcer for combat sports, including the UFC. How did that career begin? And then how do you stay passionate? Because I know that that's a very competitive field. So, how did you get into it? And then how do you stay compassionate about it?
Well, first, thanks for, bringing me on. I really appreciate it. Anytime someone has an interest and dedicates a few minutes to you, I'm always very appreciative of that. I'm a fan of what you do, your reviews, and I don't, they just, when someone gets it, it's refreshing to see that because you have a lot of the opposite of that, and you can't please everyone. You know what I mean? And like I'll see something where somebody say, okay, list overrated actors, a post on social media, and then underneath that there'll be legends, De Niro and just everybody. And it's really interesting, and I appreciate your objectivity and your insight on what it is you do. And it's interesting that you bring up the betting. I've always thought that was very intriguing, how the evolution of betting, because I was in the crowd at UFC 5 as a much younger man, and I just was overwhelmed and it was a different sport back then.
Yeah.
And to see how it has evolved into something like that, and that's where I kind of dropped off when it became that entity on these major betting platforms. I'm just like, wow, they're giving odds and minuses and pluses. I'm like, this is unreal. There's a learning curve to getting involved in that. So um when I the very the, to get to your question, after all of that, when
Thank you
I
for that, by the
began
way. Thank you. I appreciate that.
when I began professionally announcing, of course, we all want to be, we all want to work for the UFC, or, the biggest there is, Michael Buffer and all that. And like I said, I was in the crowd, and it just became, the goal. So, I'm not sure, somewhere 12, 15 years, that's what I wanted to do. I went up to Dana White in a steakhouse in Las Vegas, having no experience. And I mean, I just broke into it. There was a table
Wow.
of fighters. I started, ladies and gentlemen, and now I just started. And he's like, whoa, hang on. So we exchanged contact information. I didn't have any content or anything. And through the years, I just occasionally, once a year, twice a year, he connected me with the production. And, now that they've grown so much, boxing, slap fighting, contender series, jujitsu, um, there was an email not too long ago. I said, listen, this has been a long time. I said, could we have a phone conversation? And there was a contender series spot, and it went very well. I love that show. That went very well. And it just, I expect to do more with them. Like I said, they need a stable, nobody's, going to take Bruce Buffer's job or anything like that. But it was a long time, and I wrote it on the refrigerator. I said a prayer. I said, if I just want to hold that microphone. I told him this. I have video of this. I said, I just want to hold that microphone. I just want to be in the octagon and complete that goal. And among the other things I've been very fortunate to do as well. So, that's been a long time goal, and how that all has culminated into where I am. I'm very blessed and fortunate, and I appreciate every minute of it. And I do expect to do more, and staying with, like, there's always things, like, I'm at a point now where I want to do what speaks to me, like even with the film. I want to, it's not about money or, I used to chase down every opportunity that I had. It just, the opportunity has to make sense. And now, as the Hulk Hogan's Real American Freestyle has came up, that is an amazing production. And they've had one show. We have another one on October 25th in Penn State College. Just the best wrestlers in the world, gold medalists and world champions. And what they're doing is giving these wrestlers a platform that they've never did. So that spoke to me. And I have did some things similar to that. People have tried to skate along those lines. But to present it, and that's what they came to me and said, we want to present this in like how you present MMA, boxing. We want it to appeal to combat sports on a platform. So I'm very lucky. They give me a little bit of freedom to kind of sculpt and mold. It's a very different world. Olympic style freestyle wrestling is very different. So that speaks to me. I do some other things as well. So that's, I've been doing that a while, and it's a good question. I didn't mean to ramble on and on about it, but like I said, when you get interested, when somebody has an interest, I want to just, chat about it.
Yeah, well, it's such an interesting sport, and I think that, like you mentioned with MMA, there's all these little other facets. So like with UFC, or with Dana White, he's evolving into like all of these different avenues, which to me is so interesting because combat sports is entertaining regardless. Like I love MMA, but I also enjoy boxing, BJJ, wrestling. I think that me personally, I always try to bet on the wrestler because I feel like that's the best like what do you call it? Best background to have when going into combat sports. But kind of piggybacking off of that and jumping into the film, and I guess this kind of goes hand in hand because speaking of wrestling, you were an announcer in Foxcatcher, and then also you did some announcing in one of the kickboxer films, which I went back and watched both of those moments because I actually saw Foxcatcher in the theaters. I really enjoyed that film. Uh, I already knew the story, but it blew my mind to see it play out like the way that it did. But were those kind of like the did you get the bug, on those sets, and then ultimately that's kind of what led us to today?
Those, on those films, I was asked to do what I do,
Yeah.
and I saw that opportunity. I love the premise of both of those and some smaller ones as well. And when I was on set, I'm one of those people, I'll talk with the guy sweeping, the makeup, the catering. I talk with everybody. And I really did. That's when it happened. I said, I am very comfortable in front of the camera. I've never claimed to be a well-versed actor or trained. I mean, it's a whole entity when you get into that. There are people out there that just have so many layers, and I know I'm not one, but I said, I'm comfortable. You give me 2 or 3 takes, in a pathway that I'm comfortable with, and I can do this. And then what happened, Jesse, I'll tell you, I was doing local, regional stuff, shorts, little series, and I was able to land a couple things that were interesting to me. And when I got there and I saw how it was done, and I know this probably sounds like a negative motivation, and it pretty much is. I went like I do. I'm very inquisitive. I want to know what everybody's doing. We spoke a little bit here before about your technological thing, what you got going on. I want to know how it's done. And I looked around and I said, I can do this. I
Yeah.
said, I can do all of this, and I could probably do it better than you. Is that, what I mean? In my brain, that's what I'm thinking. Well, I wasn't, I was way off, because if you are an aspiring filmmaker, I mean, anybody can, it's great. They say, point the camera and make a film. But if you have a level in your mind that you're used to, and you're going to create something that can garnish attention and be respected by those peers on that, it is a massive undertaking. It is incredibly time consuming. And I mean, people understand that, but I didn't understand that because of my ego and my confidence. I said, I can do this and I can do it well. And I did. I stuck through it. I mean, it's years. It took years. And that's how it really all just kind of transcended was that I saw something I thought I could do. And even though it wasn't as accurate or it didn't come together like I thought it would, that's how it happened. I mean, I think I just remember it very vividly with filmmakers pretty much locally. And I'm like, why are they doing it like that? You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't it
Yeah.
be easier? Some of the things I understand now why they were doing it like that. But to be honest, and I'm like, when you work in the fight game, especially when you've worked for Dana White, you try not to pull punches. You just say it. I just got pissed off with how there was just such a dishonesty and a misrepresentation with filmmakers and this, begging people for money and just the way they went about it. I just got just pissed off. I was like, it doesn't have to be this way. But I do understand it because it takes money and time. So unfortunately, that's a huge factor in doing it. So I made sure that time and money weren't the shining factor in what was going on. I made sure I had to get that in place personally before I still was blown away, but with how massive that the project became. Plenty of times at night, I was like, should I create a speech on how this is going to fail or we can't complete it? Because it was easily the biggest project, the single most, the largest artistic expression of my entire life. It
Yeah.
really was. And I'm so thankful that it's completed,
I,
completed and released.
I will say that like film, this is how I always feel about films, good or bad. It's such a huge feat to get a film completed, to see it all the way through, to
Oh,
put it out there for people to see it. So good or bad, it's still a project that you completed. And I say that not that your film is bad because I really enjoyed it. I'm just saying like people in general, because so many people start these things and don't finish them. And so I applaud you for making that effort and putting it out because not only is it for you, but it's for all those other people that supported you along the way. Now, with this project, though, you do wear multiple hats and you're director, producer, actor. How did you manage those roles on set? And did one or more come naturally to you more than others, or did it just kind of all fall into place while you're working?
that's another question I wasn't. That's another thing that was brought to my attention that I didn't give the proper attention to.
Yeah.
My partner, Greg Krause, one of the best cinematographer in the region, said, I don't think you fully understand about acting, directing, and producing in the same project. And I'm like, I can do it. But I want to say that before that I didn't highlight a minute ago was the catalyst of all that I had outlined was I had been in some smaller projects that did not get completed. And man, was I mad. You know what I mean? And I invested time, I invested money with local filmmakers, and they said, "Oh, well, this is what happens." You know what I mean? So that was probably the thing that tipped me over the edge on to do it. Um, and I did not, in getting back to what you just asked, I did not understand the severity of that situation, what all that took. But before I knew it, I'm involved. I'm in it now.
Yeah.
I got people involved, and I said, I can do this. And I remember very vividly sitting there going, I really didn't. You're trying to prepare to present yourself in a certain way. And you got all these producing, you got food and actors and cast and crew and locations. And this person isn't happy what's going on with this location. And you're trying to get ready to act. I cannot express enough how huge that is. And I can't see another situation in which I would take that on, at least not in that. I'm not saying no, because that's the big question now about, because there are opportunities when you do release a nice film, and I'm not saying no, but like I said, it has to make sense. And I am sure about one thing, that it would have to be a better situation when it comes to directing and or producing and or acting in the project. All of that has to be a better situation for there to in any future projects, because when you say it, I get that. I feel it. I'm like, I remember how I felt. And I remember, I'm like, I'm not up on a roof. You know what I mean? It's acting. It's making a film. I get people that want to be in films, and man, it is unbelievably, for me, it was unbelievably challenging. And many times in the quiet of the night, I was asking myself, I'm not familiar with failure or quitting, but I'm sitting there saying, well, in my back of my head, could I justify not completing it? There's so much involved in this.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing about that is the level in which you want to film everything on 8K helium weapon red, or you want to use your cell phone. There's a lot. It depends on the standard that you set, because and some people are like, listen, just point the camera and get it done. And other people, and luckily for me, my partner's the same way. We just go over it and over it, and sometimes you have to compromise. There's always compromise, and you, my friend, are very good at recognizing that and objectively pointing that out, understanding and getting it, and say, well, that's. I learned that, I was told there's a film that you write, there's a film that you shoot, and there's a film that you edit. There's 3 different films.
Yep,
And
that's
that
right.
is true. So all along that journey, you have to recognize that, and you have to address that as you go. And when you're doing multiple jobs, I mean, just being a gaffer, just being the camera, the cinematographer, just being the actor, that's an immense job. If you do it well, any one of those jobs, just getting food, feeding a cast and crew of 30 to 50 people is an immense job. Like when somebody asks me, and you're going to set a spread, like of hot 10 plates of food and sides, and that's a big job. It makes me get anxiety just thinking about just that one person's job. And then when you are controlling all of those jobs,
Yeah.
oh man,
Well, taking a step away from that, I want to jump into like being in front of the camera. You've mentioned, well, you and I have talked about this quite a bit, off camera, but you've mentioned that you don't really consider yourself to have much range, which I don't agree with, especially having seen the film. Yet your performance, it shows a lot of depth. Did you learn anything about yourself as an actor while making the film?
nobody has really keyed on that. And I have said it in the privacy of the circles on, with the people that are close to me. And it's kind of embarrassing, but it is true. And you know how it is with us. Um,
I just think it's worth highlighting because knowing that this is like your first like feature and your first foray like into this world, like as like you're almost like announcing yourself in a way. I saw range, and like I don't want to discredit you because it's like I told you again privately, like I was ultimately just waiting for you to get back on screen. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't want to discredit anyone else in the film, but your character was really entertaining, and I just want to kind of, I guess, take a dive into like what did you learn about yourself?
well, thank you very much. I mean, that I had in the my dreams, that's what I wanted to do. And that was the goal. And so when the concept of the story, I came up initially with this story concept and how it unfolds and what transpires. And then I was very fortunate to have a wonderful writer, Michael Ferrari, and my partner Greg Krause, who contributed so much to sculpting this story and that screenplay. And but to be honest, if I'm being honest,
That's what I like.
I mean, this is it, man. I would never offer this unless I was asked. But I said, well, first of all, what do I like? I like Silence of the Lambs. I like Seven. I like Dexter. I like this. So how is it that I can craft something that could showcase me in a way that would fool people into thinking that I had this ability? I know I can concentrate on it somewhat because I've been in front of the camera for many years. So, what is natural to me? Number one, you know, uh, that physical presence of intimidation, be it through voice, and we have experience with voice. I can turn it on for Madison Square Garden, ladies and gentlemen, and now live from Madison. I can, and that whole entity, which I don't want to give anything away,
Yeah, yeah.
is pretty. And growing up in the era that I did with those figures on screen, from the legendary action and the legendary horror, that it's just not something that is that I feel is difficult for me to channel that character. And then there is the opposite of that, which is a soft, well-spoken, articulate, I don't want to say feminine, but almost like leaning into the, I don't even know if it's okay to say that, but leaning into a very unintimidating demeanor of Father Arland Anthony, the priest. And I said, these two things are opposite. And I'm comfortable with both of those. I feel like I can present each of those things in a way that would make someone like you say, you know what, there's something there. There's something to it. But I mean, I want to, Jesse, I get people in film like all the time that have, not all the time, that's not true. It has came to across and said, hey, listen, I have this part and it's a father. I've got to watch how I say, and he's dealing with his son that is going through questionable, sensitive things about his nature and who he is, and without getting too specific. And I would say, I could do that role, but there's probably better actors, even just locally, that would probably deliver a much better performance than I would. I mean, I can get it done. I don't want to undersell myself, but there's very complex things, and especially today with the personalities and the issues of today, that I'm just, I can study it and try it. And like I said, I'm just not an educated actor as far as, method acting and all that. And there's people that just take this to bed with them. That I'm like that with announcing too. Like I stay up with what's going on. I do my homework, but I present and introduce. A lot of the people that do what I do, they just make this, they are insane about the knowledge, where this guy went to school, what his seventh grade teacher said to him. It's, you know what I mean? I'm not like that, even with acting. So it's, I wanted to showcase what I was comfortable with. And both of those things seemed kind of opposite. And that's where the story, I said, you know what, if I could create that, it will fool people. I said it to myself. It will make people think that I have range and that I'm a pretty solid actor, without me having to go to acting school and study this for years and get guidance and rehearsals. You know what I mean? After a few takes of either one of those things, and I think, I would be able to play. And I think, and even as we were casting and stuff like that, which I did most of the casting. I mean, myself, I really did. I was the bottom line, and they asked about this character that I was playing. I said, you know what, that's where this came from. But if I will not sell the film short. If someone rolls in that can do this better than me, and it makes me take a pause and go, whoa, because if you think of that role, I can think of some famous people, some really big actors out there. But if it was just a talented actor locally, or we got someone, and if it was a close, like I like to go out. I did this several times with test screenings. If you ask friends and family, you're not going to get what you need.
Yeah.
I have literally for this film did anonymous uh, QRC code reviews and stuff like that before anybody saw anything, because I wanted to get some inside information. So, and I said, well, if it's a close thing during a rehearsal, someone comes along and showcases that, and they're better. And if it's a toss up, I'm going to win. It's my shit. You know what I mean? It's mine. But if I'm like, like someone like De Niro's there, or somebody this talent that I'm like, man, this guy is Arland Anthony, then I will step aside. And I wanted, the film comes first,
Yeah.
and I'm really happy. I'm really happy. I watch it today, and I'm so fortunate, and I appreciate every frame because of the attention that we put into it. And now you don't know until like 10 days ago. You know what I mean? Now you're like, okay, we've had screenings, we've had family, we had a premiere. I've asked people to watch, but now it's out there, and I can honestly say, thank God, people like the film. They do. 9 people out of 10 that watch this film will be glad that they did. That's not an opinion. That's, there's always, listen, I've seen a couple things where people, we even discussed a little bit about that, but I'm like, well, where, yeah,
Well,
you never.
it's kind of like you were saying about the lists earlier. It's like I hate this about reviewing films is like people just say a film is bad, but then they'll never tell you why it's bad. They just say,
Yeah.
"Oh, I didn't like it." But that's kind of what I like to do with my reviews is like kind of highlight both the good, the bad, and in between. And I think that's why you and I, get along so well is because I want to be constructive, and you do as well. But I to kind of I guess give you a little pushback as far as like what you were saying about you playing that role is I don't think if you were to put a name in that role, it wouldn't pack. I mean, not to say you're not a name, but like if you were to put like a De Niro or someone like of like a household name in that role, it wouldn't pack the same punch. By it being you, it kind of like is a little unexpected. Like it's we know something's coming, but we don't know exactly what it is. And then, but if it was like, Pacino, someone, Pesci, somebody we know, we would know. Like it's I like it. Because this, and we've talked about this too, and this is also one of the issues that people have with this film. It has like nice little fun cameos. And for me, an avid film watcher, I did appreciate the fact that they weren't shoehorned in. They were kind of selected for, their abilities and who they are. And one of the ones that really kind of caught me off guard, as far as like their performance was Doug Bradley.
Doug.
Incredible nuanced performance. We know him as Pinhead, but and he's iconic. I've seen him at conventions and he always has a hell of a line, but it just it just was like, damn, like what was it like, you know, I guess directing him, but because it was just such a good performance and that could have been just a throwaway character, but with him in place, he really gave it life and he made it interesting and he made it his own.
Man, Jesse, you asked the questions, man, that wow, you really get to it. It's amazing. I've never to be able to go into it like that. It really it says a lot about it. Anyway, I want to tell you, you know what that is, and I'm very positive about this. You know what it is when you said about De Niro and Pesci? It's because people like to have their own little gem that they discovered. You know what I mean? There was movies that I have considered like True Romance.
Yeah.
is one of my movies. Now with the internet and everything, everybody, I used to tell people about True Romance 10, 20 years ago that had no clue. That was my little gem. And I like K-Pax with Kevin Spacey
Yeah, it's a
and
good one. It's a good
little
one.
man. Oh man, that's one of my all-time favorites. It did horribly at the. I love K-Pax, but it was my own little gem. And that's what you're illustrating. You're saying if it would have been one of those guys, you go into it expecting those guys. But that's and that was, believe it or not, I'm not just trying to make it complex in any way. That was the idea. I want to make something where people say, you know what? I found something. It's not a big movie. It's not perfect, but this is my little thing. You know what I mean? Where it gives you these little scenarios and makes you think. And they say, I like this little movie. That was it. I didn't want to make it too complex. I didn't want to make it a great big whodunit. I
Well,
didn't want to have
that's kind of like what you and I were talking about with that one review, and the guy was like, "I didn't get it," and it's like,
the plot, right?
what
Like, where are you lost with the plot? It's not spoon fed, but it makes the viewer say, it makes them feel good about knowing, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then it's not, blood isn't squirting out of necks or anything like that. It never ended up like that. But the Doug Bradley, again, part two of what you just said, I worked with Doug Bradley in a wrestling promotion called Black Craft Wrestling. And he was somebody called the Preacher. And I was the announcer. And he came out in this black thing and they put him up on the promo screen. And he was like, John Morrison, you have fallen short. But on Black Craft 7, you will face my chosen son. He had the cross. And I was like, I was enamored. This was a primary inspiration. So I always knew I wanted Doug Bradley. Now, I got to be honest again. Getting a hold of Doug Bradley is not easy, and you have to go through the channels.
Yeah.
You have to be fixed in a certain way. And I had him in mind for another role, more Doug Bradley-ish in the film, which you could probably put together. I don't want to give too much away, but you could probably put that together. And he said, Jazz, I just did that role. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And I'll be damned if he didn't. This role was exactly the same. Gotham Knights on the WB. He was this. It was exact. I was like, damn. I was just, number one, he didn't want to do it again. And number two, somebody else had put somebody in the same position that I had. And then about a week or two later, I don't know, it might've been a few days later, I don't know, he contacted me again and said, I do like this role, the police captain. And I'm like, well, who wants to see that? You know what I mean? Like, but at the end of the day, as they say, it's Doug Bradley, and he's been, always a fixture in my, journey and what he's done. He's exquisite. You know what I mean? Like he's just he's an individual that when you're around him, I'm pretty easy to figure out. I talk a lot. You know what I mean? I don't, I get excited. You know what I mean? Doug Bradley's he's more deep. You know what I mean? And I'll tell you this right now. Doug Bradley, I'm speaking out of assumption, he's probably used to guys like me. When he came, you said, you asked, how was it to work with him? Well,
well, how was it to direct him? I feel like that's pretty intimidating, to be quite honest.
It was, and I'd never directed before. And he knew the part. And I figured, there was a couple little things. I let him do his thing. You know what I mean? Like there was a couple little things that was in direct, that in the script. And a lot of time actors get submersed in what they're doing with their part. And they don't, and I'm guilty of this too. They're not taking in the whole story or something that happened that's something that's going to happen or something that's already happened. And then you could direct, I need you to hit that one little phrase or pause or specify that one thing because it's relevant to what's going on. So I would offer occasional things like that, but being around him, and I'm just being honest, I love you, Doug, but I felt as though I was probably somebody that he had just been around a lot. You know what I mean? Like a guy like me, my age. I know how to be professional and conduct a set and be what I need to be, but he's just used to that. So you know what? I'm going to tell you something. The crew on the film was, now we did bring in occasional people that very talented what they do, but the majority of the crew, film students, 21, 22. Johnny Cordy is a producer in the film. He graduated from Ohio University, and he has connections, and he brought in some very competent, talented film students, and they're young. I mean, to me, they're very young. They're like 21, 22. Some of them, they're kids to me, and they just wanted to be a part of it. They did an amazing job, and a lot of them were learning on the fly. They came up to me and my partner Greg and said, "We've learned more in this summer of shooting this film than we did in 4 years of film school." With the C clamps and all this stuff. Like they really stingers and all the techno. I'm learning too, and they really got an education. And guess what, Jesse? Guess what? I am a student. What's going on? And Doug Bradley likes youth.
Oh,
Doug
okay.
Bradley likes young talent. He likes their motivation. He likes watching it. He likes being around it. It does something for him, and I noticed it. So Jazz Securo took 2 steps back and pushed those young crew members around him, and he had a ball. He was at the table and eating lunch and conversing. I got pictures of him, just had his arm around, talking back and forth, giving them advice. And the crew, they genuinely love 80s, 90s. In fact, they are so enamored with that era. You can almost feel like a sadness about them for having not been in it. And they make shorts and films, and they buy these crazy huge TVs, and much like your background and all that, they have all the VHS tapes. And Doug Bradley, I am confident in saying he's drawn to that. And so I let Doug Bradley be Doug Bradley. He's a charming man. I like how calculative he was. He did a great job. And I let I call them the kids, the boys. I let them maneuver, and I'd go up to them sometimes, and I'd say, "Hey, we need Doug to, be here, be there," and they'd come over, and he was. I felt like he was drawn. I've seen that before, because I like that too. But you could tell someone that's, we're all on a different part of our journey, and where he is on his journey, and then you got this 21-year-old film student. And then it all comes together. And me, I'm like in the middle of these people. So, but I felt like he had been around me or people like me many times, and he was nice and directing him. He followed direction. He knew his stuff, and he did. And like you said, that you have mentioned more than once, several times, that it's interesting. And I had wondered about that, because he's not in the role that Doug Bradley you would think would be in.
Exactly.
And we've got comic relief from him that worked on audience. I'm sitting there watching. We've got we call points of levity. I wouldn't call it comedy, but he in that role, I had talked with. I mean, I guess it's okay to say I was in talks with Eric King, Dokes from Dexter, and I'll tell you what, that was his role. I mean, he was signed, sealed, and delivered, and COVID.
Oh yeah.
The SAG. No, the SAG strike, not COVID. The SAG strike, and we tried to come to a thing. Very gracious, but the late. I don't want to forget. I'm trying to make a sharp podcast mind. Tony Todd Tony Todd was very sweet. Rest in peace. He loved it. He loved the script. He loved the part. Uh, also,
He's a lot like Doug Bradley, though, because like you were saying about the youth, he does the same thing. Like I've interviewed him a few times, and he'll come to the interview with a list of kids that he has to mention, which I've always appreciated about him because that's when he shines. And a lot of times, and I'm sure you know this too, Jazz, he'll take on a project, for like a tenth or even more of what he would get in a bigger feature just because he likes the project. So I love that
yeah.
you mentioned Tony Todd. And then also too, I can't not mention Courtney Gaines and Kurt Angle. I thought they killed their roles, while they are brief, again, kind of back to what I was saying about Doug Bradley, these roles are not shoehorned in. You kind of put them in positions where they can succeed and really showcase their skills and talent. And I really didn't know what to expect with Kurt Angle, to be quite honest, but I really thought he did great. And then Courtney, I've seen him in tons of shit, and he always comes to play. But I really, and you mentioned this too with casting, I really like how you kind of plucked different people from different projects and kind of, it was almost like a game of life. You kind of put them here or put them there, and it all kind of made this really fun little, I mean, the film isn't fun per se, but it kind of made this like nice little story arc or storyboard or story, and it just seemed like everything kind of worked in the end, regardless of where you put everybody.
Well, negative motivation, Jesse. I'll tell
Mhm.
you what. I said, well, I want a name, and then I got to thinking about that. You know, like there's a bunch of I could sit here and really it's quite a journey with that alone on how that all happened because I was literally doing that work on my own.
It's
Nobody,
hard. It's
had
not a lot of people
not
know how difficult that is. It's not as easy as just picking up a phone or sending an email. You actually have to put in some legwork.
well, I knew what I wanted, and I said, well, I want to put a name in here, and I got in a position where I could do it, and then so Kurt Angle was first, and then and Kurt Angle, by the way, I did not know what to expect with him either. I'd seen him brief. I know he's been in front of the camera. He's that WWE presence. What I didn't know was when I put him in a role like this, but guess what? Kurt came prepared. Kurt knew his role. I directed Kurt as we share a scene together, and Kurt was astute and he delivered. He really did. And I don't think he doesn't get a lot of or he doesn't do a lot of stuff where he is, and he did a magnificent job. So Kurt's in place. That took some doing, but you know what? Kurt's in combat sports. I work with Kurt at RAF now, Real American Freestyle. So guess what? Well, he knows Kurt. Jazz knows Kurt because that he works with him. Oh, so what? So well, there has to be another one, right? So Courtney Gaines, I was in talks with a couple other people for Courtney Gaines's role. Courtney was referred to me. I'm like, Malachi, Children of the Corn. And let me say that Courtney is an actor's actor. He teaches. He knows the set. He knows what's going on. He knows. I can't even compare. Like it's like comparing just two different universes. Which I mean, I could just being around him is But Courtney was brought on for his presence. He wasn't like you said. The role that he had is just all about his presence. People will do that. They'll follow him early on. They'll know that. And then he does what he does.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. I guess the last with Doug Bradley, I had originally talked to him about maybe I'm giving it away with that role. He didn't do that. So I slid him in. And then I said, you know what? One more than Kurt is just be like, well, he's probably just saying, well, he could get Kurt, so he'll get one more. So I said, there has to be three. I call them the big three. There has to be three to really just finish. I don't know what you would call it.
The
You know,
the tripod.
yeah, the the independent film where I'm at, saying, you know what, Jazz is not playing around. That's what I wanted. I wanted the community to feel that. Mostly the people I'm talking about was just negatively motivated. I said, you know what, I can do what you do. I can do it better than you can.
Yep.
And I'm going to get actors that are better than you get. And then I must mention Callie Busso, our leading lady. What a cool role. I mean, you know, there's no reason for me to say that. I'm not in the lead role. I just felt, man, a female detective with an edge, living in the shadow of her father. You know, she's got this, her music's edgy, her car's an older classic car for her, which was her father's, which is not in the story. She just has this gift of clairvoyance. What a role. And she's just a badass. So we had that role. I had lots to choose from, not like the other roles. There weren't a lot. And Callie just came in, and it was, I will say this about Callie. When I was on set, because of my inexperience, I always left at the end of the night going, I was scratching my head going, well, you know, the scene calls for this, and she does the scene, but I just felt like there was something, I don't know. It's because I had no experience. And then it wasn't until later when I was watching it and we were editing it, and I'm like, she took that and did what she had her own idea about who that was, her little facial expressions and nuances and her timing. I was like, she made Stephanie Bennett what. Now you may love it, like it, being different, regardless of how you feel about how she did it. She had a plan, and she did it that way. And I love her, and I love her for that, because in all honesty, you know, I've never directed anything, and I wasn't sure how that was going to come. But when I watch it now, I literally get choked up. When I read your review, I got choked up. I get emotional. I was like, I need a minute. You know what I mean? Not because, and you don't gloat. You don't sit there and give people what they want. I'm like, oh, he picked up on that. And there's nothing you can do once you've got it in the can and you've edited it and there's no other takes to go through. You can pick up, well, we don't have any more footage for that actor. Yes, we could have developed that a little bit more. Or yes, this performance is a little bit, but that's just how it is with you know, individually and stuff like that. It's just the way it is. But when someone does, like with Callie, what she did, and with your review, and they really understand, they really give a shit. That's all you have to do in this world, is be savage enough to give a shit about what you're doing, and you will stand out. People will take notice whether they love it or hate it. And she did that. And when I watch it, I've watched her on screen more than any human being that has ever lived, and more than anyone ever will. I tell her that because you sit there in that editing chair for hours and hours and days and years. And I just get emotional watching, because she just, and when you look at it all together, yeah, there's things in there with myself and everybody. You go, well, wish I could have really hit this a little harder, or took a breath right here, or had a shot of it like this. But you don't. You have to look at it all together. And that's what casual moviegoers, including myself up until the time I made a film, don't realize.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's interesting to me when people tear something apart, which I thank God I'm not speaking about, our project, because I've really, really been blessed with everybody liking it. It's interesting when, I see people on a day, I'm on the internet every day now, and I see people just tearing down legends, musicians and artists and filmmakers and directors and singers and athletes. I'm like, I don't want to give an example, but I'm like, do you realize what it takes to be Conor McGregor or Jake Paul or what, you realize what it takes to reach a point that you have had that much success, that kind of discipline, accountability, and responsibility that it takes to achieve something on a level where the whole world is. And then you got like you said, well, he sucks or
Yeah.
he's fake.
Yep.
You know what it is as a fighter to be even affiliated with the UFC, to them to even have them on your roster? Do you understand the level of excellence that you have to achieve to even be on their email chain?
Exactly.
It's
And that,
insane. And that goes with actors and athletes and everything. And I was guilty of that. And we all still do that. We all have our reservations, but I've got a whole new respect when it comes to you know, like even like look at what you do, look at what you've done. There's a great deal of work that goes into that. And for someone to be so in touch, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter what level it's on. Like with what I do, I said, well, if I've done this, I'd like to do it again. But if I do it again, it's simply me doing it again. You know what I mean? So I have a whole new appreciation on performance and just when someone truly cares to review or to act or to fight or to present or whatever it is that you're doing, to the point where it's notice has been taken on a certain level. It takes a great deal to do that. And I always I've been fortunate. I've announced in Madison Square Garden. I've announced in the Prudential Center several times. And every time I do, I get off that plane, I get off that bus or the ground transportation. And I
the
look at that
shuttle.
venue and I go, I'm going to go in this place and I'm going to stand in the middle of it in front of thousands of people. And people are going to be watching on TV in front of all these people, all these viewers. And I look around where it's situated in this city and I'm like, look at all these people going to their jobs. There's millions of people here. Here I am, raised in West Virginia, getting off of a plane, coming in. There's so many people here that could do this. You know what I mean? Like, look at, this guy's, he takes tokens on the subway, and this guy's, he's selling gyros on the side, and this guy's homeless, and there's so many people here, and they all have their place in life. And I respect and appreciate all of it. But it's amazing to me that you get in life, when you apply the stages of which that happens and how that all, I never take that for granted, but people do. You see it in the comments, and it's just like I see it more than ever now. But I just it strikes me differently, and it could be something very small. Before I got on here today, I look at something very small and go, where are they? How are they coming to that conclusion? I could sit here for hours and give you example after example after example. And I've gotten debates over it. I take up for people I have no business taking up for. You know what I mean? I'm like, you understand what that individual has done, regardless of how you feel about his politics or her, her journey or whatever. It's
Yeah.
it's it's just it's interesting to see. And it's a crazy world that we live in, when people, and I've got it all around me, close people around me, my circle. I always get from people like, well, do you think, what are you going to do next? Do you think that'll lead to a bigger movie? I'm like, or you were on Contender series on ESPN last Tuesday. You think maybe that'll lead to UFC 350? I'm like, is it ever enough?
Well, that's always how a lot of times these always wrap up. And I don't like wrapping up my interviews that way unless it just kind of goes that route. But you kind of answered that
Well,
for me. But
it's different on an interview. I mean,
no,
that's
no, no. But like either way, though, I feel like you should be able to celebrate your victories. And this movie, and all of those things. This is another thing that we didn't even touch on. You're ring announcer of the year in multiple regions, Madison Square Garden, like you mentioned, and now this film, Thy Will Be Done. Fantastic film. Jazz. Like I just can't stress that enough. I do think that this will find an audience. I recommended it to my parents, for Christ's sake. Like this is a good film, and especially a first outing, man. So I want you just enjoy it. Don't worry about what's next because you're already, whether you want to or not, you're already working towards that next film or that next appearance or that next performance. And I have to say, just sitting here and speaking to you and learning about your journey, man, I'm a fan. I sign me up. I want to be a part of the fan club. So just to kind of wrap up, man, I always end it like this. Jazz, here at CineDump, we let the doers know how they're doing, and you are doing just fine. I do have one more selfish question that I have to ask you. Do you think Conor McGregor will fight at the White House?
Wow. That's a very do
He he
I
said
don't.
he said he's yeah, he said he's in the pool. He said he's training, but then you see him at, BKFC, and I'm just like, are you even taking this serious? And I don't know if you saw any of his press tours for Roadhouse, but he's not really in a condition to fight. So I am a fan. It got a lot of my friends into combat sports. I hope the best for him. But yeah, I guess I would like to see him fight, but I guess time will tell.
Conor McGregor is a testament of hard work. He's taken mixed martial arts to a place that we didn't even know could be taken.
Yeah.
He was a double UFC champion that held two belts at one time. He has fought. I see people say, "Oh, Khabib beat him." Well, hey, you're talking about one of the couple people on this planet.
An enigma.
Conor McGregor can't fight just an average. He's got to fight the best in the world. Easily one of the best talkers ever. I envy Conor McGregor and his ability, where he just
him and your boy
for me. He has. Oh man, I am such a fan. I don't. I think I don't think competitive wise. I don't think that I think he knows he has to say that. I am completely speculating right now because I love him. I've never met him. But if you're asking me honestly, I don't think that, and it's not to no fault of his own. There's a lot that comes together with just fighting on any card in locally, let alone a UFC card, and then let alone that card. He has a lot of irons in the fire, and he's doing very well. For all that to happen, for him to actually step in that octagon and fight again, it would take a lot. So I'm just going to go with the math. I don't think it makes sense for him, whether he wins or loses. I mean, the money, he's probably going to get a lot of money, but I would not be surprised. But if I had to bet, if I was on a betting pool, will he fight? And you're asking me right now, I would say I don't think he will. And I don't really think, I think it's easily dismissed as, does it even make sense with how big he is? I mean, it's like Mike Tyson fighting, you know what I mean? Almost, I just don't think that's, he's at a different place right now, win or lose. I mean, it'd be nice for him to do it. Maybe he will, but I don't think he was. And you are a testament to what you do. And I appreciate every second. And I really do appreciate the kind words and just your time that you spent watching the film and the fact that you get it. You know what I mean? You get it in all its glory, and you get it in where it falls short, and you're appreciative of that. And I've got some stuff coming review wise that I'm waiting for, and I've asked for it. You know what I mean? I said, hey, let me have it. I love it, whether it's good or bad. So I do appreciate it, but thank you so much for taking all this time. We probably went over 3 times because I just run my mouth so much. But
no, you're awesome, man. And
I
it was like I said, man, I love your journey. I love your story, and I love the film. So, yeah, thanks again, man. And I guess we'll be back and chatting about the next one because I know that this is just the beginning.
Well, all the viewers out there, make sure you stream on Amazon Prime or Google Play. It's going to be on a whole host of other platforms, but right now it's doing well. It's moving up the charts, and as long as it's doing well, it will stay right where it's at. But there's a whole bunch of platforms that come together. And I want to say, me aside, I don't want to, I always get, when you watch this film and you support the film, you really are, this isn't bullshit. This isn't me pitching or marketing. You really are supporting something good with good people. I've never been in a position where I could pay people what they were worth, but it was a very big priority to make sure that people were paid and they got what, you know what I mean? I that's one of the things about the local thing. I'm like, all these people are doing they're sacrificing, giving money. It's like, man. So, but you know, I wasn't in a position where, and I want to be in a better position where people are paid more. But when you support the film, you really are doing a good thing for good people. Take me out of the equation. There's good kids involved in this, great actresses, Callie Bussell, Layla Cushman, Rick Huddleston. I want to mention David Hemanowski and all the crew members, Heather Giglio. These people are good people who basically I could never pay what they're worth. I just couldn't. And the producers, I just can't. And when you do that, it just kicks them up with their friends and family. They never, you know what I mean? They're not about money. Everybody involved in this was a passion project. They loved it, like a lot of film projects are. But that's my heart is in it for them. I want to see them just benefit. You know what I mean? I'm going to be on the front of this thing because that's just who I am here. That's where I find myself with this project, and that's what I wanted. So I'm going to win, lose, or draw. If it's bad, it's my fault. If it's great, they did it. But I want, when you're looking for 93 minutes worth of interesting, and even if you give it that spin, listen to Jessie, watch that film, and just know that you really are doing something good for some good people. There really are. And I hate to sound cliche. I know everybody says that. And it's hard for me to get it out because I remember the last 3.5 years of what they did. I said, we need this. And these people just, they're all just great people. So I don't want to reiterate anymore, but I want to express that to the people. If you're on the fence about it, and you could see it's a solid, it's getting great feedback. It's solid. And we want to hear from you as well. Thy Will Be Done on social media. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. Of course, my name, everything. If you just search me, I got a pretty easy searchable name. So I pop up and you can see all the actors are connected to me and all the crew members. So, we want to hear it. Let me have it. But be like Jessie. If you're going to let me have it, make sure you can explain. Make sure that you bring something to the table. Don't just, I don't want, oh, it sucks or they sucked or this. No. You tell me, you explain why that sucked. I want to know,
Yeah. Well, Jazz, again, thank you so much for your time. Yeah, this was a blessing. Yeah, you said it all. So thanks again, man.
Well, thanks, Jesse. You are all aces and keep doing what you do, buddy.